I think, got it, will be familiar to all of you. In addition to the many hours that he dedicates to our Rotary Club, John balances spending time with his family, with playing golf, watching baseball, and viewing movies that make him think. He is also a professional speaker and a new author. Today, John will be sharing his struggles with his mental health issues, his battle with depression, and an attempted suicide, and how he has managed to rise above it to live a better life. And so I welcome John, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts. Can't hear you.
There.
Great.
Thank you very, very much, Jeanette. And first, I'd like to introduce, there's a guest who has just appeared. She's wearing a yellow sweater. Her name is Pauline York. She's my sister. She is my one of my dear sisters. And thank you for joining us, Pauline. Okay, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a rundown on who I am. First of all, I was born in 1952 and lived in the city of Winnipeg all my life except for 5 years when I was in Saskatchewan, where I met my dear wife, Jan, which was certainly the best thing that came out of my moving to Saskatchewan. I would say, looking on paper, so to speak, I've had a quote unquote normal life. I graduated from the University of Manitoba in 1975. I spent 27 years working in the insurance business in many different capacities. I love the game of baseball. When I go into a ballpark or watch a game, the rest of the world actually disappears. I fended off a suicide attack and spent 6 weeks in a mental hospital in 2002. I love movies. I love my dear wife. We've been married for 36 years. And I go through the things like that. Did anything sort of jump out at you that would be maybe not normal? Of course, it would be the fact that I fended off a suicide attack. I swam into the middle of the Red River in 2002. But I lump everything together for the simple reason I don't want that event or my mental health issues to define me. And I really encourage people who are subjected to that to throw that mantle off. And we're all just people. Many of us have or have had mental health issues. As a matter of fact, statistics show that between 20 and 25%, and I suspect it's even higher, but 20 or 25% of Canadians will experience a mental health issue / problem in their lifetime. It's far more prevalent and far more active in our society than we let on, and we give it too much power. We give it too much power. One of the reasons, and I've been asked, John, why did you write your book? Well, first of all, I wanted to share with people the things that I have gone through. And I knew that this would happen. I met with another person yesterday who bought my book. I've known him for years. He said, John, I went through something similar. I've been through some pretty significant mental health issues. My spouse has also, and one of the problems we had is we could not talk about it to our families, to our friends. And that is when mental health has its most huge amount of power over us. It's the silence. When people are silent about things, it's got the power. When you start to talk about it, you bring it out in the open. Now other people come along and say, well, I've had something similar, and I'm glad you're talking about this. And it's just good for many people to talk about it. I think I have to sneeze, so please forgive me if I do. And now I probably won't, but that's good. Okay, as my dear Uncle Fred said to me when I first created and distributed a couple of DVDs about my mental health issues, he sent me a letter and he said, "John, that's the way you deal with demons. Fight them right in the middle of the street in broad daylight." And that, again, that is a pretty powerful message. So I was asked, again, I've been asked a number of times, why did you write the book? First off, it's extremely therapeutic. It's been extremely cathartic. Many people, as you know, who have gone through some very tough times, when they put it down on paper and share it with people, again, they start to get support. Another fellow in another Rotary club that I was in, Eric Roeder, his mother wrote a book called "We Don't Talk About That." And it was about her experience in Nazi Germany. And of course, a lot of people did not want to talk about that. But once the story started coming out again, it started to lose its power. And a lot of people started saying this is wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one reason. Another reason is when I went into the hospital, I spent 6 weeks there, 6 weeks in the mental health ward. And my dear wife came to see me every single day. She said, "We're going to get through this." She said, "The Melnicks are going to find out what a McGillivray is made of." And she is a McGillivray, and she's a Scot, and she has a stubborn way of, and a blessed stubborn way of saying, "We're going to get this done," and that's all there is to it. But I started researching, how could this happen to me? Anybody who knows me, and a lot of you do, I've done a lot of work and been at a lot of meetings with you, your perception of me is probably one of I like to be a bit of a joker. I like to laugh. I like to work on good things. You would probably never suspect that I would swim into the middle of the fast-flowing Red River, attempting to end my life. Well, I have an answer for some people that say that's a pretty selfish thing to do. And I say, well, it is. It leaves a lot of people worried and in the lurch, etc. But until you experience the extreme pain that a depression, a severe depression visits upon you, I don't think you're in a position to judge whether it's selfish or not. It was just terribly painful. But when I woke up in the hospital, when you go into the hospital under those conditions, they pump you up with a lot of drugs. And it was probably 2 or 3 days as they started to slowly bring down the level of drugs in my system, I realized what had happened. I made 2 decisions. Number one, I was going to listen to and do anything and everything the doctors and nurses asked me to do. My reasoning was I couldn't deal with this on my own. I tried to, I was accepting some help, but of course, being a male, we don't need help with things like that, do we? Males aren't susceptible to mental health issues. Guess what? They are in the higher group of suicides because they hold so many things inside. So one of the decisions I made was I'm going to listen to and do everything the doctors told me to do, tell me to do. The other one was I vowed to research how this could happen to me because I didn't want it to happen again. And evidently, when you've had one depression, the chance of having a second one goes up by 50%. and the chance of having a third one goes up by 2/3. I do believe I had one when I was about 25. So, but it was undiagnosed, and I came out of it, okay, went on with my life. But the second one is, like I say, ended up with me swimming into and then out of the river. And I thought, how could this happen? Like, what's going on here? And as I researched, I found a number of things that I wanted to and still want to share with other people so that they can be forewarned about their own, the possibilities of them having a depression. Those major issues are, and when my doctor diagnosed me with having depression in 2002, the first thing he said was, "Do you have depression in your family background?" I said, "Yeah, I do, on both sides." And as a matter of fact, my grandfather on my father's side suicided. He said, "Well, people need to learn, and now you're learning it. If you have mental health issues in your family background, you are predisposed to mental health problems. And there's things you can do to, mitigate the risk, etc." But he said, "I'd suggest that you start learning as much as you can about this one, this depression, because you can probably protect yourself from having another one." Another thing, and I've been asked often, what are the signs that you might be having depression? I had not been sleeping very well at all. I had probably gone 2 weeks sleeping maybe an hour. And I went to the doctor. This is before he diagnosed the depression. I said, "I'm not sleeping well at all." He said, "Well, I'll give you something that'll help you sleep." I went back 2 weeks later and I said, "This isn't helping. I'm not sleeping any more than I was before." I said, "I want something stronger." He said, "No, nothing stronger will help you sleep. You have depression and we've got to treat that." So not being able to sleep. Now, lots of people have different sleep habits. Some people sleep, early in the evening till early morning, some late. If you've gone along for a number of years and your sleep pattern is such that it's consistent and you're able to do things during the day, etc., you probably don't have a problem. But if your sleep pattern changes and you have no way of getting it back to what it was, you probably have a mental health issue. There's something going on with the chemicals in your brain that are causing you to stay awake. The other thing is, if you become irritable, angry, start losing weight, start gaining weight, and if those things happen for 2 weeks or longer, you probably have something that you should go and have investigated. It's not uncommon for people to go through depressions. If you lose a loved one or you do something, like something happens to you, you fail an exam, whatever it might be. But usually people are kind of back on track within about 2 weeks. If you're not, you should go and have it checked out. So I wanted to share these things with people, and it's amazing how many people have said to me, "Thank you for that. I have some of those symptoms or have had, and now I'm looking into and I'm working with my doctor to help prevent me from having depressions." Okay. The other thing is I developed strategies that have kept me mentally healthy, and I've outlined a number of them in the book. Some of them will appeal to some folks and they will be, appreciative and they'll work, but you can develop your own. One thing I have done is I have journaled a lot. I have written out how I feel day by day at times, especially if I'm not feeling very well. I'll journal for a few days and I'll take a look at what was happening during those days. If I start to feel, and I know very well what it feels like to be pulled into depression, I will cancel things for about a week or two. I'll just take everything, because overloading your schedule is one of the worst things you can do at any time, let alone, when you're in depression. I have evening routines. And by that, I mean, my wife and I will watch Jeopardy. We love Jeopardy. And we have some other shows that we love to watch. And by 9:30 or so, I'm really winding down. And I happen to play cribbage on my iPad. It relaxes me. And I do that for about an hour. And then I start to drift off to sleep. And what I'm saying is you can find things that will give your mind a break, whatever it is, whatever it may be, because that gives your mind a rest. And that's probably the most important thing, is to be able to give your mind a rest. The other thing I have come up with, and I'm going to open it up for questions very shortly here, keep the right people in your life, throw the wrong people out of it. And people can be cruel, they can be self-centered, they can be, well, you all know what I'm talking about. But especially watch your close relationships. I was in business with a fellow who, for about 7 years, it worked very well. Then he started changing. He became tougher and tougher to deal with. He became mean. He became cruel. I found out later he was $1.5 million in debt because he was gambling at the machines. He won't tell you that. They won't tell you that. And he's passed on now, and I wish him well, etc. But I had to get him out of my life. He was one of the major causes of problem in my life, and I had to get him out of my life. It's not easy to do sometimes, but sometimes these things just have to be done. So I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to open this up for questions. If you want one method of getting people out of your life, change your phone message to this: thank you for calling. I'm making a few changes in my life. Please leave me your name and phone number. And if I don't call you back, you are one of the changes. So I think I've had my 20 minutes. I'm happy to go on, but it works, honestly, Jeanette, it really works. And I'd like to open it up for questions, but before I do, I want to say one other thing. My sister, dear sister Pauline, she came to see me when I was in the hospital, and it was just like worth gold. Your family, if you have a good family, it wraps around you. And my whole family had to learn what to do, how to help me. And they reached out to many people. There are many, many organizations that can coach and guide. The Canadian Mental Health Association, the Mood Disorders Association, etc. So that's one of the things that I suggest. If you have a friend or loved one who's going through a mental health issue, consult with some of these groups. The other thing, Pauline, is Jeanette works with Home Instead. Home Instead gave my father wonderful care for for about the last 3 years or so that he stayed in his house. He didn't want to move. And Pauline, this is a lady who works with Home Instead. So there's a connection there. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So I'd like to open it up for questions or comments, please.